Good morning, Pastor Steve here. Turn to Ephesians, if you would, chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. And you he has made alive who were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath like the rest of mankind. But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. Yesterday I alluded to a root problem, something bigger than just being good or bad. And it began with our first parents, good old Adam and Eve. God made them in his image and his likeness, and they walked with him in the garden. They had a life with God. Then they voted God out, or thought they did. Remember when they were living in that great lush landscape, and God gave them everything they needed to live well? He didn't want them to be choiceless as to loving him, so he gave them one simple rule, and told them, if you break this rule, you will die. The snake lured them in, you know the story, and they died. But it wasn't a drop-dead now thing. It was a death of their life with God. The connection with God, the image of God was marred, broken, and they died in a spiritual sense. Interesting, in Genesis 5, someone pointed out, and verse 3, Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness, after the image of himself, named him Seth. In his image, in his likeness. Two spiritually dead parents could not produce a spiritually alive offspring, and so down through the ages, the human condition got worse and worse and worse. We were, in a word, sunk. So thousands of years passed, and the sacrificial system was developed by God to show humankind his or her lostness, their death relationally with God. But remembering that humankind was sunk, God did an amazing thing. He came down. A young virgin got a midnight call from an angel, and she was told that the child she bore would be born not of two spiritually dead parents, but rather the most alive Father ever, God himself. So Jesus came, lived our life, and died our death, so that as many as received him, he could be part of the alive to God family once more. The sins we do are because that's our nature, but the salvation God brought was simply because that is his nature. John Piper said, you didn't do anything to move God to make you alive. That's what it means to be dead. So it is, as Paul said, we were by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind. But God, being rich in his mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace we've been saved. Steve Brown says, grace is a function of God's love. It is not based on our actions or behavior. As Christians, we've been called to live in the freedom of Christ. His gives to us. The fact is, as hard as it is to accept at certain times, Christ has already paid for our sin, struggles, and guilt. Shame should lead us back to God, but it often causes us to turn from him. You ponder that, Pastor Steve.